Nancy Kidd, and I am the Executive Director of the National Communication Association. On behalf of our 8,000 members, I'm pleased to welcome you to this discussion. I'd like to start by thanking the Department of Rhetoric and Communication Studies at the University of Richmond for welcoming us to this beautiful campus and for encouraging this productive and collegial partnership in pursuit of our complementary quest to understand human symbolic action across a variety of venues, including presidential politics. Given the various ways in which communication scholarship can be useful to our citizens, from interpersonal relationships to health practices to political engagement, a core component of the National Communication Association's mission is to facilitate the dissemination of disciplinary scholarship to a public audience. There are few activities more important to the welfare of our nation than informed voting, and I hope that this event serves in some modest way to provide a context for this vital practice. Once again, all of us at the National Communication Association are grateful to the Department of Rhetoric and Communication Studies for your willingness to co-sponsor this exciting event and for welcoming us to your campus. Please join me now in welcoming the chair of the department, Dr. Marie Bourton.
Thank you very much. I am Professor Mary Bourton, the chair of the Rhetoric and Communication Studies, and we welcome you and we thank the National Communication Association for collaboration and leadership on this event. A special thank goes to Professor Tim Barney, who will be moderating this event this evening. And as we know of moderators of late, he might be a Twitter celebrity by 8 p.m. So stand in line and get your autographs early. 1992 was a significant election, and I recall fond memories of working in that election on a national focus group project with some of the panelists here, Diana Carlin and Mitchell McKinney, in the snows of New Hampshire. And we will talk, both of them are in Missouri, and we'll talk later about how you actually pronounce Missouri, okay? Because I think that matters, and from Joplin, I have to say I have my predilections, and it's Missouri, okay? Again, I'm going to be short here because Trevor, a former colleague of mine, told me not to have my, my remarks long, and as a former colleague, I always listen to everything he told me. Okay, and listen to other things across the wall too in our building. So again, please join me in welcoming our panelists this evening.
Well, thank you, Mary, and I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and again, thank the National Communication Association. But I'd like to get right into it because you're probably wondering what these people are doing sitting up here and why we have this wonderful group being Skyped in. I feel very technological right now. I'm very excited about this. So let's hope and cross our fingers that we get to keep the connection. So, on October 15th, 1992, President George H.W. Bush and presidential hopefuls Bill Clinton and Ross Perot took to the stage at University of Richmond's Robbins Center. As the first ever presidential debate in a town hall format and the first ever presidential debate to have a female moderator, the innovative and memorable event brought presidential candidates in closer contact with voters, but also complicated the way American political messages get communicated. Tonight, we reflect on the legacy of one of presidential campaign history's most important and enduring debates while assessing the state of political debating and presidential town halls today, particularly as we come off the heels of one of the most divisive debates we've seen in a long time on Tuesday night between President Obama and Governor Romney. Tonight, we are fortunate to have with us leading scholars in the field of political communication to provide context and thoughtful comparison of 1992's and today's political landscape. But perhaps even more important than the impressive expertise of these panelists is to appreciate just how much the role of the citizen plays in the deliberation of major problems and solutions in public life. We have individuals joining us tonight who asked questions that change the terms of electoral discourse by standing up and addressing presidential candidates directly and courageously with concerns so deeply a part of their everyday lives. And we have those who sat in the audience as students watching this debate who went on to a career in public service and a life of giving back to their community. Thus, while not everyone may agree, we are proceeding with the assumptions that debates do, in fact, matter. Not only do we learn information about the positions and the characters and the values of our candidates, but we also learn about who we are and how we identify as Americans. Let me briefly introduce tonight's format before I introduce our town hall participants. In the spirit, now you guys have to be with me on this, all right? In the spirit of the town hall format, the majority of our questions will be generated from the audience and some from our friends tuning in over social media. We'll see how that works, right? Many inquiries will be coming from students who have been drafted. Hey guys. Many inquiries will be coming from students who have been drafting questions from our Rhetoric and Communication Studies seminar called Election 2012. I will begin by asking each of our participants an opening question while allowing for any additional comments that other participants would like to offer. Then, we will turn it over to you, our audience members, to be a central part of what we hope and think will be a rich conversation. Throughout the debate, we will also engage with a few of the integral moments through video clips of that '92 debate, as about as much has been written about this debate visually, as we know, as has been written about its verbal arguments. So, without further ado, our first guest tonight is Diana B. Carlin, the Associate Vice President for Graduate Education at St. Louis University and an internationally known expert in political debating, as well as an original member of the Commission on Presidential Debates. Amongst countless other landmark publications, she co-edited the 1992 Presidential Debates and Focus book with Mitchell McKinney, who you see on the end there. Next, we have the Honorable Jennifer Mcclellan, who is elected to the Virginia House of Delegates from the 71st District in 2005. As a 1994 graduate of the University of Richmond, a little Richmond pride here, guys. Delegate McClellan attended the '92 presidential town hall debate as president of the College Democrats here on campus and as a guest of a certain Hillary Rodham Clinton, who you may have heard of. And she has since gone on to become an inspiring and award-winning civic leader right here in Virginia and in our home town of Richmond. Thirdly, we welcome Mitchell McKinney way down there on the end, an associate professor and director of graduate studies in the Department of Communication at the University of Missouri, or Missouri, as I didn't get that right, and a scholar who has combined outstanding and pioneering political communication scholarship with extensive experience as a staff member in the U.S. Senate and the White House, and as a consultant to C-SPAN and the U.S. Commission on Presidential Debates. Next, we are pleased to present to you via satellite, I've always wanted to say that, we have Carol Simpson. We are very pleased to present her, a broadcast journalist and pioneer on a host of levels, not just as the first female moderator of a presidential debate, but now she's also a senior leader in residence at my alma mater of Emerson College. We're very pleased to bring her here with her class, which is appropriately called Road to the White House. So, in addition, over here, I'm doing both here. We have Marissa Hall Summers is also a very special guest here, right here in the middle. Marissa Hall Summers is one of the selected citizens who participated in the '92 town hall debates, who asked the much debated question to the candidates, how has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? Which we can all remember very well. She now lives in Maryland with her family, which they're here to join us tonight, and her kids are dressed very sharply and ready to go. And finally, last but not least, we finally present Denton Walthall, joining us today from not too far up the road, and another of the town hall participants in '92 who asked the now famous question to the candidates about pledging to end negative campaigning and focus on issues instead of character, sparking a national discussion. This man right here, sparking a national discussion in public forums and in the media about how we as American voters judge presidential candidates. So we could spend the whole time talking about their accomplishments, but we want to hear from them. So my job as moderator will hopefully be simple. Make sure that our audience gets heard, that's you, see that our participants get roughly equal time, solicit follow-up questions if necessary, and keep the program moving. To paraphrase Candy Crowley here, if we don't get to these questions in the audience, they'll run me out of town. So let us begin. So if we could, Trevor, if you don't mind, we want to start with a very quick clip here from the 1992 Richmond debate. And folks up in Boston, you may not be able to see this too well, but Carol, you know this clip pretty well right here.
Good evening and welcome to the second of 3 presidential debates between the major candidates for President of the United States. The candidates are the Republican nominee, President George Bush, the independent, Ross Perot, and Governor Bill Clinton, the Democratic nominee. My name is Carol Simpson, and I will be the moderator for tonight's 90-minute debate, which is coming to you from the campus of the University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia. Now, tonight's program is unlike any other presidential debate in history. We're making history now, and it's pretty exciting. An independent polling firm has selected an audience of 209 uncommitted voters from this area. The candidates will be asked questions by these voters on a topic of their choosing, anything they want to ask about. My job as moderator is to, take care of the questioning, ask questions myself if I think there needs to be continuity and balance, and sometimes I might ask the candidates to respond to what another candidate may have said. Now, the format has been agreed to by representatives of both the Republican and Democratic campaigns, and there is no subject matter that is restricted.
Excellent. So you get a sense of the format here that we're dealing with, and actually the first question that we're going to ask is going to go to Ms. Simpson here. And at the start of the 1992 town hall, as we just saw...
If you did that, you could take away the incumbent's advantage.
Oh, that's right.
Because...
I was going to say, I heard the melodious voice of Bill Clinton there. So I was entranced by it. But Ms. Simpson, at the start of the 1992 town hall, you described, as we heard here, the event as unlike any other presidential debate in history, which gave us the great title for this event tonight. So can you reflect on that moment in history, that sense that this was a special, unique moment? Was the historical nature of the debate shared by the audience and by the candidates, in your opinion?
I believe they were, Tim. There had never been a town hall format, and I was thrilled with the idea that the voters could ask questions of the candidates instead of panels of journalists, which had been the case previously. So I thought, this is wonderful. How great that they get to ask their own questions. And so I also talked to the members of the audience, the undecided voters who were going to ask the questions, and they were so excited. And we had a great chat together, and I felt totally comfortable after I got to talk to them. And I had been terrified. I was about to pass out right before you heard me say those words. I thought I was going to hyperventilate and fall on my face, which is always the case. But once the red light came on and I was given the cue to go ahead, I knew I had to do my job and do it the best I could because so many people were counting on me. Women were counting on me because I was the first woman, and African Americans were counting on me because I was the first minority. So I had this additional of trying to do extremely well in running this debate. One of the bad things about it was that I didn't have any tapes to go look at and see how it was done. It had never been done before, so it was kind of a show, and I got to carry it off as I saw fit. And I have to say it was the pinnacle of my career. Never before had I been seen by so many people. I think the estimate of the audience then, about 92 million people. And I have been recognized around the world today for having participated in this debate. I had no idea that worldwide everybody was so interested in American politics. So it's been, you know, the pinnacle.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Carol. Does anyone on the panel want to also comment on the sense of the significance here? Is this something, for example, that you know, Carol obviously knows that the stakes at the time, the sort of rhetorical situation that we were in was high. But do you get a sense that the actual historical nature of this debate happened after the debate? Did this kind of take on its own life, or does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, for me, it was definitely historic because as a 19-year-old college student, the fact that I was in a room with presidential candidates was historic in and of itself. But now looking back over time, I do think, in retrospect, it started what now has become the standard. And whether it's the presidential level or gubernatorial races or even local races, it's expected now. And I think if a year went by where there was no town hall format debate, I think that would be the story.
Mm-hmm. Good, yeah.
Well, I want to first thank you for inviting me back here. I was here in 1992. I was up in the cheap seats, not down where they were, watching the debate. I was on the advisory board for the commission at providing some research for them and also helping look at how we could improve formats. And Mary Tunn was involved in this along with her husband. They were up in New Hampshire, and we had about 20 friends in the National Communication Association who were doing focus groups. And if you remember, Carol, the first two debates were canceled that year because they were still debating over the debates. And we had this grant to do research with real live people immediately after the debates, voters, to find out how to improve the debates. And the first two debates go, I'm sitting here going, I've got all these people ready to research, so let's talk to people and say, what do you want when they finally happen? Should we have them? And one of the most common things that came out of that was that people said, why can't we ask questions? Why can't the average citizen ask questions? Because we know the journalists know things we don't know, but they don't ask the same kind of questions we do. And so it was really historic in that sense that you had a public voice that was put into the debates that had never been there before, and you really had no idea what was going to happen because we all knew this was going to be very different. Plus you had 3 candidates on stage, and we had never had that before. So there was a lot of history being made.
That's a can of worms we're going to get to, Diana. Yeah. Any other comments on that before we? Please. Thanks, Mitchell.
You know, one of the differences that we've noticed over the years, as we were analyzing that first town hall debate, and we were looking too at the media coverage, and Diana, you know, I've noticed this certainly has died down. Among the critics of the town hall forum were other journalists questioning why we only have 3 debates and why should we give one over to these undecided citizens. And there's always criticism of undecided citizens of why can't they make their mind up? And but to the credit of these citizens throughout the last 20 years, that criticism by the journalistic community has diminished in terms of questioning, should we give over one of our debates to citizens? Yep. And it's, to me, it's directly a result that the diminishing of that criticism is directly a result of the superb job that these citizens do every 4 years in questioning the candidates.
Good. Thank you, Mitchell. I'm going to move to the actually perfect segue, Mitchell, to the question I was about to ask, and this one is actually specifically for Ms. Summers in the middle here. Trevor, do you mind pulling us the clip of the well, we're going to call it the famous question, the question heard around the world here by Marissa Hall Summers, and we're going to take you back 20 years here. So if you can handle that, okay.
Clinton, thank you. We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? And if it hasn't, how can you honestly find a cure for the economic problems of the common people if you have no experience in what's ailing them?
May I answer?
Well, Mr.
Who do you want to start with?
Of course.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. For each of you.
Yes.
So
it caused me to disrupt my private life and my business to get involved in this activity. That's how much I care about it. And believe me, if you knew my family and if you knew the private life I have, you would agree in a minute that that's a whole lot more fun than getting involved in politics. But I have lived the American dream. I came from a very modest background. Nobody's been luckier than I've been. All the way across the spectrum, and the greatest riches of all are my wife and children. It's true of any family. But I want all the children. I want these young people up here to be able to start with nothing but an idea like I did and build a business. But they've got to have a strong basic economy. And if you're in debt, it's like having a ball and chain around you. I just figure, as lucky as I've been, I owe it to them. And I owe it to the future generations. And on a very personal basis, I owe it to my children and grandchildren.
Thank you, Mr. Perot. Mr. President.
Well, I think the national debt affects everybody. Obviously, it has a lot to do with interest rates. It has.
She's saying you personally.
On a personal basis, how has it affected you?
Has it affected you personally?
Well, I'm sure it has. I love my grandchildren. I want to think that they're going to be able to afford an education. I think that that's an important part of being a parent. Maybe I won't get it wrong. Are you suggesting that if somebody has means, that the national debt doesn't affect them?
Oh, what I'm saying
I'm not sure I get it. Help me with the question, and I'll try to answer it.
I've had friends that have been laid off from jobs.
Yeah.
I know people who cannot afford to pay the mortgage on their homes, their car payment. I have personal problems with the national debt, but how has it affected you? And if you have no experience in it, how can you help us if you don't know what we're feeling?
I think she means more the recession, the economic problems today the country faces.
Excellent. And so here's the question, and also, as many of you know, what happens very shortly afterward is Bill Clinton sort of steps out of the sort of the box, and into our personal space a little bit, and closer to Marissa in the video, and answers the question in a fairly different way. And so I guess my question for you, Marissa, is first of all, how did you draft your now famous question about the national debt for the presidential candidates? And why was it important for you, or important to you, that the candidates be able to express empathy and compassion on a subject such as the national debt?
Well, during that time, a lot of my friends and I were recent college grads, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to graduate from college, I'm going to get my dream job, work a little bit, purchase a home, purchase a car.
Like these guys out here, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. And it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. We weren't able to find work. We weren't able to buy our homes, and those of us that did have homes were having difficulty paying their mortgages and their car payments because their companies had downsized, or several people that I knew had been laid off. My brother, who is a genius as far as I'm concerned, had just gotten his MBA, and he wasn't able to find a job. And the engineering firm that I was working for, we weren't getting a lot of the projects that we were getting before. So the principals of the firm were taking pay cuts so that they could afford to pay the staff. And I began to think about, I wonder if they know. I wonder if they know that all of these different things are going on. And so I just started to write my question. And back then, and I don't know if people still do it now, but I had a little 3x5 index card, and I jotted my question down. And I also wanted to represent a large sector of people in the United States, not just myself. So I wanted to ask a question that would speak for a lot of people. And I wrote my question down, called my mother and said I might be able to go to the debate and ask a question, read the question to her. She said, sounds good. And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's history, yeah. No, that's a great answer, and it gives people sort of an inside look into also there's a courage to having to step up and actually ask these questions in this kind of forum. I had a quick follow-up, actually. This is for you, Carol, if you can still hear us over there.
I can.
And to go along with the question to Marissa, how did you, as moderator, balance the sort of pressures to, because you knew ahead of time the questions that we were dealing with here, how did you balance that pressure and to choose which citizens to go to and how to manage the citizens and to get to as many people as you could?
Tim, it was totally different. I did not have the power to call on certain people. I did not know their questions. Yeah. Unlike Candy Crowley, who got to see the questions and then choose the ones that would be asked, and then the order in which they'd be asked. I had no idea who was going to say what.
So would you like that power? I
was being talked to by a producer in my ear who would say, go to the man in the brown suit with the yellow tie on your left. Then go to the lady in the green dress, and they were literally just trying to make sure that the audience, the questioners were diverse and that there were young and old and male and female. But I had no idea what the questions were going to be.
So that's a luxury now that you that they have now that you didn't have then. Yeah.
Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you for the answer on that. And now I'd like to also have a question here for Denton, if possible, and also if we could get the clip prepared on that one too. At one point during the debate, I know, don't hide your eyes, an area citizen, Denton Walthall here, chides the candidates for waging a negative campaign and asks them to pledge that they will only focus on issues rather than image and character. President Bush actually defends the use of character as a prime factor in a citizen's judgment of a candidate. So let's look at this clip a little bit, and then I have a specific question for you, Denton, about how this went.
Campaign is going. We have a gentleman back here.
If I may. And forgive the notes here, but I'm shy on camera. The focus of my work as a domestic mediator is meeting the needs of the children that I work with by way of their parents and not the wants of their parents. And I ask the three of you, how can we, as symbolically the children of the future president, expect the two of you, the three of you, to meet our needs? The needs in housing and in crime and you name it, as opposed to the wants of your political spin doctors and your political parties.
So your question is?
Can we focus on the issues and not the personalities and the mud? I think there is a need, if we could take a poll here with the folks from Gallup perhaps, I think there is a real need here to focus at this point on the needs.
How do you respond? How do you gentlemen respond to?
I agree with him.
President Bush?
Let's do it. Let's talk about programs for children.
Could I ask one other thing?
Yeah.
Could we cross our hearts? It sounds silly here, but could we make a commitment? You know, we're not under oath at this point, but could you make a commitment to the citizens of the United States to meet our needs? And we have many, and not yours. Again, I repeat that it's a real need, I think, that we all have.
I think it depends how you define it. I mean, I think in general, let's talk about these issues. Let's talk about the programs. But in the presidency, a lot goes into it. Caring goes into it. That's not particularly specific. Strength goes into it. That's not specific. Standing up against aggression. That's not specific in terms of a program. This is what a president has to do. So in principle, though, I'll take your point and think we all...
And so this is actually, Mr. Walthall actually kind of started a trend here. You'll see this at other debates where citizens will ask for a particular pledge here. And so I'm interested in this, Mr. Walthall. Can you talk about, first of all, why and how you chose this particular question, similar question to Marissa, but why do you think the invocation of a pledge may have been particularly difficult for presidential candidates in a high-stakes election? They had trouble answering this question. And has the tenor of campaigning improved or worsened since you asked that question?
Okay. Well, can you hear me? No comment. There was no, that was a rambling discourse, obviously, but I had a list of maybe 80 questions on the way there that I had prepared with friends and family and coworkers, and most of them were based on foreign policy issues because I was a political science major. And but when I got here, along the way on Three Chop Road, there were a lot of people protesting at the time, and they had their placards, and they were addressing primary issues about jobs and employment and housing, the budget, things of that nature. So that just struck me as something that was important. The issue of character certainly was, hot in the press with Bill Clinton and his activities, I suppose, but to me, it was, we need to focus on the underlying issues and not the personality. And in terms of how it's developed over the past 20 years, I think, what comes around goes around. I think we're back to where we were in terms of what the issues are that are driving people. The buzz these days is unemployment, and it was the same 20 years ago. I'm sure there are character issues that we could delve into on all aspects of the characters, but that's primarily how it developed.
That's great, thank you.
And that was spontaneous.
Oh, yes, yeah, Carol.
It's Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
I wanted to interject here, if I may, about Denton. I I knew that President Bush had come into this debate with his game plan to attack Clinton's character. And when he asked that question and said, we don't want the mud, we don't want the negativity, and so on, I have known George Bush. I had covered him for 8 years, so I knew him pretty well. And it was as if somebody had stuck a pin in him when he asked that question, and he was off his game for the rest of the night. I could tell that he had just lost all energy, all enthusiasm because of Denton's question. Denton, another thing you need to know is that Rush Limbaugh was on the air 2 days ago, and somebody sent me the link, but he was talking about me. I don't know why I still gall him or what would make him talk about it. But I've been on TV a lot talking about the debates, and so anyhow, he started criticizing me, and he was talking about that Carol Simpson. Get Carol Simpson, like that's the way I talk. And he said, I'm going to exaggerate. He said, I don't know why she dislikes me so much. And then he said, you know her. She was the one that moderated the ponytail man's debate. So he remembered you with the ponytail, and I have to know, because I can't see it, whether you still have a ponytail.
Yeah. Carol, did you just see what Denton held up?
Can you see this?
Can you see it?
No.
I'm not sure where the camera is.
You have the ponytail.
Yes. It will go with me for the rest of my days. But and there's a story behind this. For the record, I'm not a social worker.
That's great.
You're speechless, I know.
If I could, I'd like to actually continue on these themes a little bit, but this is, I'm actually going to take this to Dr. Carlin. And something that Denton brought up here is these issues of image, image and issues, if you will. So how do the tensions between issues and images continue to manifest themselves in presidential debates? My poor students are probably, we talked about this ad nauseum in class, but these, do the formats of debates lend themselves to favoring issue or image or vice versa? And what kinds of challenges does that create for candidates, voters, and campaigns?
Well, Mitchell and I started doing this focus group research 20 years ago. We're still doing it. We had our first book, and there was an entire chapter that was written on the town hall. And I have a second book that came out that looked at the town hall also, and we had one chapter in the second book that just dealt with the issue-image kind of dichotomy or split. And what we've found over the years is that there's really not this split, that they really do play together. And what was happening with Denton's question wasn't so much an image issue, but it was a character. And it was the personal attacks going after the character. As Carol said, they wanted to go after Clinton's character. And in 1996, that was Bob Dole's big push, was to go after character. And what happened was we found out in our focus groups, both in 92 and 96, people were very offended by that. Because they were saying, don't ask questions specifically about character, don't attack. We can make decisions about character. We can make decisions about a person's image, about their leadership quality, based on what they say about the issues, about how they've behaved when they've been in public office, whether they've promised to do something, and even if they didn't succeed, if they at least tried to get something through, then that says something about their character. And so they really didn't want the personal attacks, which is, I think, really what you were getting at, Denton. Yeah. But the image issue, I think, is a totally different issue, and that plays into the idea of leadership. And one of our colleagues who also does debate research, Ed Hink at Central Michigan, wrote his dissertation at Mary's alma mater and mine, the University of Kansas, on the notion that what debates do is they enact the presidency. They really are theater. And that what people see when they watch one of these debates is how someone will be presidential. How will they handle tough questions? How will they handle an unexpected question and situation? Especially with the town hall, how will they address individual citizens? And so in that sense, they feel like they get a sense of leadership. So image is important, but I think image in this election has played out on a different level. And that is more delivery style and nonverbals, as opposed to the broader picture of image of how will you be president? What does it mean to be a leader? And I think that's one of the changes that's happened, where everybody wants to, identify exactly what every nonverbal moment meant, because that's going to say something about them and their reactions and their character. And I think we've maybe overanalyzed some of the image piece this time around.
Yeah, no, it's good. Does anybody want to follow up on that, Mitchell?
I'd like to point out, particularly while Carol is with us, in this question that Denton had put to George Herbert Walker Bush, since the first presidential town hall debate in '92, we've continued in our research to analyze the questions raised by the citizens. And we've done it in a way to compare those questions to the top concerns of the public during that presidential year. And Carol and citizens here, the town hall debate that most closely aligns with, relates to the top concerns of the public, was the 1992 town hall debate. And in the article that I published, looking at that research, and it was titled, I think aptly, "Let the People Speak," it seems to be that once the moderators then were asked by the commission and the candidates to screen the questions, once the journalists got a hold of, okay, we will select which questions are asked, rather than what happened in '92, I think a true citizen forum, town hall forum, where the citizens stood one by one, raising questions, raising issues, and put to the candidates. Again, that was the town hall debate that most closely aligned with the top concerns of the citizens during that election cycle. And again, they got it right, versus these town hall debates where somehow someone must screen the questions and select which questions get put to the candidates.
May I ask Mitchell a question? I'm curious.
Absolutely not.
Oh.
Of course.
No, I'm curious to know if you think that the debate Tuesday night, the questions came closer to that national public agenda. And I thought they did.
Yes, and we haven't, of course, included that one yet, since we're only about 48 hours. But I do think that Candy did a very good job, because you go down the line and there are questions that are the greatest concern that seems to be of the citizens today.
Yeah. So maybe that means we need to have women running the town hall?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. I was hoping you heard that one, Carol. Yeah, that was
I
good.
knew Carol would bite on that. She and I were on a public radio show together a couple of weeks ago on just that issue of women moderators. So
we're gonna have to get to that one in a second. But one thing I want to ask here. This is slightly going in a different direction, but this is actually for Delegate Mcclellan, and you kind of, you hinted at this during one of the answers to the follow-up question, but we have so many people in this audience that were part of the '92 debates here, and now we also have students here that are coming here to watch it and involved in politics now. So my question to you is what does the presence of a presidential debate do for the local impact, whether it's the campus or the city? And in other words, how did the '92 debate affect both the development and growth of the University of Richmond, but also the city of Richmond itself?
Well, let me talk first how it impacted the city and the state. And as you know, between 1964 and 2008, Virginia was never in play. And so we never were visited by presidential candidates, and a campaign in Virginia was sort of what we as the Young Democrats, or we as the Democratic Party tried to do, or what the Republican Party tried to do, but we weren't part of the game. If the '92 debate had not come here, the same would have been true in 1992. The Republicans didn't think they needed to come here, and the Democrats wrote Virginia off. But the fact that you had a debate here, we were on the national stage. Good Morning America broadcast from the University of Richmond that morning, and we made national news because, the Clinton, and I can only speak for the Clinton campaign, but the Clinton campaign came, I think, at least 2 weeks before the debate. Their advance team, and the Young Democrats, who had grown from 10 in 1991 to well over 100 in 1992, worked with the Clinton advance team, doing rallies, doing, you know, whatever we could, because we knew there was going to be a mock election the morning of the debate. And all we cared about was, we want Bill Clinton to win that mock election, because we knew if he did, it would make national news. That's exactly what happened. And that night, and hopefully we'll get into the story of how this sort of personally affected me, and I can actually trace from that night my path to where I am today. But that night, when I got to meet Bill Clinton, and the one thing he said to me was, how the hell did you orchestrate the victory in the mock election? He knew about it. And I'd like to think part of why he performed so well that night was because of it. But had the debate not been here, then Bill Clinton probably never would have come to Virginia. And I doubt, you know, President Bush might have come to Northern Virginia, but that's about it. I also think, and this is just my gut feeling, but someone asked me the other day, why are these presidential debates always at schools that nobody's ever heard of? And I do think that a large portion, you know, a large segment of the United States hadn't ever heard of the University of Richmond until that debate. And so I do think it sort of got a lot of people, and I like to joke, I don't know if it's changed, but when I was here, it seemed like we were the Virginia campus of, you know, Princeton, or we were sort of where everybody from Long Island, New Jersey, and New York went. And so I think the debate sort of opened the door to people outside of Virginia, New Jersey, and New York to say, hey, maybe I ought to look at this school.